Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. You dialed it correctly to USA Prepares. I'm delighted to be broadcasting today. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Guineith Isaacs is with us. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Well, I've read the article about the gunman who shot dead, it looks like at least 50 people, injured at least 406 people.
Oh, no, really?
In Las Vegas.
When did this happen?
Well, it's let me read you. Let me read you what it says. This is from the Daily Mail. It says, gunman who shot dead 50 people. Now, I've read other articles that say maybe a little bit more than 50, but gunman who shot dead 50 people and injured 406 when he opened fire on a packed Vegas music festival from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel before committing suicide. Goes on to say at least 50 people have been killed, more than 406 injured after a shooting at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas, Nevada. The shooter has been identified as Stephen Paddock, 64, who opened fire from a 32nd floor room of the Mandalay Bay Hotel after 10 p.m. Sunday night. Police say that they breached Paddock's room and found him dead inside along an arsenal of weapons. Cops have located Mary Lou Danley, described as Paddock's companion and roommate, for questioning, but don't believe she's involved in the shooting. They say he'd been staying in Las Vegas since September 28th. Paddock was reportedly retired and came to Las Vegas often to gamble, his brother said. It's the deadliest shooting in U.S. history, eclipsing last year's massacre at Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. The article goes on a lot farther, and there's a lot of pictures in it. Yeah.
How can he have a room full of weapons and his girlfriend not figure out that something's not quite right?
The only thing I can think of is maybe she wasn't with him in that room. That's one thing. Another thing is to shoot and kill 50 people. You probably need close to 50 cartridges, unless two of them are lined up perfectly, and you can kill two with one shot. But 406 were injured, so that kind of tells me that somewhere around 500 shots were fired. I mean, that's just a guess on my part.
That's a lot of bullets.
Yeah, it's a lot of cartridges, and so what kind of cartridges would they be? Now,
AK-47?
I was thinking about, AK-47.
That's a guess.
It'd be, AK-47, short cartridge. You could put probably enough to do that much carnage in an ammo can, a 50 caliber ammo can. One of the things that came to mind was what kind of a weapon would he use? Well, if he's shooting from the 10th floor and a floor is about 10 feet, he's 100 feet up in the air. And if he's shooting down Maybe a 22 would even, be that lethal. And I was thinking, okay, what would a 22 weapon be? And the thing that came to my mind was something called a Tech 22, TEC 22, and that's like a handheld. It's a pistol, and it can easily accommodate a magazine, an aftermarket magazine that would hold 25 to 50 rounds. Now that magazine would be about the size of a banana, literally, and that's pretty small. And I was thinking maybe he used a few of those. 10 of those magazines would be about 500 rounds. Then I was thinking, well, maybe he used a 9mm, and of course that would probably take 3 times the volume for that many cartridges in 9mm. I don't think 45 doesn't make a lot of sense because that's a slow-moving bullet and they don't have a lot of range. But then I was thinking, well, maybe it was a rifle, as you said. And, there are rifles that have collapsible stocks. One of them is the Ruger 1022. You can get a folding stock for that. And, of course, they use 22 caliber ammunition. And I'm not trying to say that this is what people should do. I'm just trying to figure out how he could get that many rounds of ammunition up into his hotel room. Maybe it would take several trips. I'm sure it took several trips, as I think about this. In my mind, I'm guessing. Because I don't have any facts any more than anybody else does. I'm not privileged to anything that you're not privileged to. So it was a terrible, terrible event. And so what is the lesson that those of us who weren't there can learn from this? One is, why would you want to go to a concert? Why would you want to be, in today's environment, why would you want to be at an event where there are lots of people where easily, a whole bunch could be injured, killed, maimed, wounded, scarred for life, if you don't have to be? What do you get? When you're all done coming home from this concert or a ball game, watching guys with short pants run around jumping on a ball or hitting a ball or throwing a ball around the field or kicking a ball and hitting it with their heads. What do you get when you're all done watching one of those things? What do you get? I mean, you've spent some money. You've been gone for half a day or more. But what do you get? Do you have a result? Do you have a result that you can say, well, that was really worth $200? I'm so glad I wasted $200 on that. I mean, what do you get? So, and the risk of being there. And I was thinking about, okay, so how many ball games have I been to in my life? I think 3. None of which I said, hey, let's go to a ball game. The only time I've gone to a ball game is when someone said, I have a ticket, or we have tickets, and we're going. Kind of like when the company says, hey, this is a team building thing, and we're all going to a ball game. Kind of whether you like it or not. That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So those are the only, or when I was a child. I went to a ball game once when I was a child. Other than that, and I didn't buy those tickets either. So I've never bought tickets for a ball game. And I don't ever plan to. But I was thinking about this, Guineith. And, there are plenty of people who have drones. And there are plenty of people who are thinking that they can use drones for all kinds of things. Well, a drone could be used to rain mayhem down at a ball game. And there are plenty of people packed in a ball game, right? Why would I want to subject myself or my family or my friends to that? And for what? What is the purpose? Watching guys with short pants run around a field, chasing a ball. I'm not up for it. Those are my thoughts, Guineith, and I feel terrible about what happened, but there's a lesson here. There's a lesson, and that is you don't have to go to these events. Have I been to a concert? Yes, I have. I believe I've been to 2 concerts in my life. One was Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and the other one was the Beach Boys. Did I take away anything from that I had to have in my life? No. And back then, I'm talking about in the 70s, concerts were a lot safer. And I don't think I bought tickets for either one of those as well. Just a thought. Guineith, do you have Any comments about?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the police to suddenly find some right-wing literature or, a copy of some, Joel Skousen text or an InfoWars T-shirt in this hotel room. Then we'll know it's a setup.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I've got to say.
And people are snapping. People are
stupid
doing
enough. A lot of people are stupid enough to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something where a lot of people now are aware. Since the passports at the 9/11 thing, of all the things that happened to fall out of the Twin Towers, there happened to be the passports of two of the supposed hijackers.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I think people are a bit more aware now than they were back then.
Mm-hmm. The article goes on to say two on-duty Las Vegas police officers who engaged the shooter have been hospitalized. One of the officers was critically injured, but is now in stable condition after undergoing surgery. The other officer suffered minor injuries. Neither has been identified. Two officers of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department were also injured in the shooting. One is in critical condition, the other is in stable condition. Their names have not been released. Lots of people were there. I mean, it was packed. It was packed. I'm just perusing the article. Quite a horrific scene.
They might have killed the guy, but they didn't want to say that. They'd probably get sued for killing the gunman or something stupid like that.
They say he committed suicide. That's what they say.
They would.
Yep. We'll be right back.
Yep.
Gwyneth Isaacs is with us live in Australia. I'm Vin Finelli. Gwyneth Isaacs is with me, and we're talking about the massacre in Las Vegas. Gwyneth, I'm looking at some images on the internet about this the shooting and the response, and I see 10 colored uniforms with, it looks like black stripes. I believe it's the Las Vegas Police Department. And I see 5 guys running. Okay, they are with rifles. One guy has a shotgun, and the others have what looks like AR-15s. However, I can see the magazine belts that they're wearing, and they don't look like 223s or 5.56 cartridges. They really look like 9mm. And you can get a barrel for an AR-15 and convert it to 9mm. And I think that's what these guys are using. So these guys in uniforms with police badges or police shields, as they like to call them, looks like Metropolitan Las Vegas Police Department. They've got some pretty serious weapons with them, and a lot more than you would see with a standard cop and a handgun. They've got extra magazines. They've got, of course, radios, helmets, face shields, body armor, knee pads, as well as handguns. They are equipped. They've got a lot of tools on their belts, and they are ready for war. And they came out in force. And I also saw an image of plenty of police cars, of course, SUVs, really. And I saw a vehicle, a heavy-duty armored vehicle, and it was marked FBI. So they brought out a lot of weapons very, very quickly to this event. Now, I know from what I've read previously that they had plenty of police presence at the event to begin with. But there are guys that look like SWAT team types. And by the way, they were bashing into doors in the hotel, I believe, where the shooter was. And these guys have backpacks on. They're dressed in military camouflage, FBI, police. I can't read what the military uniforms say, but it's camo. I'll tell you, it was a scene of carnage. Very, very sad. Very sad. But
it sounds like they knew that something was going to happen.
Well, could be. And it sure looks like, it says here, hotel guests staying at the Mandalay Bay said they were woken by SWAT teams bursting into the rooms.
Wow.
And they yelled at me. Here's what it says. They yelled at me like, quote, "Get some clothes on," end quote. I got my shirt, but I left my phone, my wallet when I came out of my room. They were telling us to run. I saw cops with guns. It was crazy. That's what it says. Anyway, that's I don't have much more than that to report. It was very, very, very sad. A lot of carnage before the alleged gunman allegedly took his own life. That's about all I have at this moment. But I'm sure more information will come out. But again,
it sounds to me like this is an example of something called a wind-up toy. Okay. For example, a number of years ago, in Melbourne, there was a particular man, and he went crazy with a weapon on a major street of an inner suburb in Melbourne. And this major street of this inner suburb of Melbourne just happened to be around the corner from my husband's mission. And this man was Julian Knight. The street was called Hoddle Street. And ever since then, this has been called the Hoddle Street Massacre. And he killed a large number of people. I can't remember how many. It might have been up to a dozen people before he was finally arrested. Now, I'll continue telling this story on the other side of the break, because I think this is an important case study of what exactly a wind-up toy is. And it's so sad. It really is. They probably knew about this guy all along.
Guineith and I will be right back after these bottom-of-the-hour commercials. Last, we're talking about the massacre in Las Vegas. 50, at least, killed. 406, at least, injured. Guineith Isaacs is with us. Guineith, we've got Mike in Maryland. Mike, welcome.
Hey, thanks for taking the call.
Sure.
What's the constant refrain I hear from alt media? Is that we can't trust the corporate-controlled mainstream media. So why the heck should we believe them when they say 50 were killed and 200 or 400 were injured? Who's to say nobody was killed? Who's to say nobody was injured? I've seen several videos, numerous photos. I see no evidence whatsoever of any blood, of any injuries. As a matter of fact, there's one photograph of a police car. There's like 3 cops cowering behind the car. One is underneath holding a weapon underneath the car. The other one on the other side is underneath the car, apparently holding a weapon. There's a guy 5 feet behind him in civilian clothes looking at his iPhone, and there's another guy in front of the car about 20 feet and slightly to the left, and the cop car is nowhere near the hotel. It looks like a staged photograph.
I'm looking at exactly that photograph, the one that you're mentioning. It's this particular one is on dailymail.co.uk. You're absolutely right. There's a cop. He's lying down. He looks like he's got, I can't tell if I guess it's a rifle. I can see it looks like a rifle. There's another guy facing the police car on the side on his cell phone, a black man. I'm using a black man just to refer to who he is. And there's a white guy on the other side of the car. And one guy, the black man is on looks like his cell phone. The white guy is holding his cell phone as if he's going to call somebody or text or something like that. And then you're right, the police officers are crouched down. However, I've seen other photographs in the same article where there are people with blood on them. There are people, either they're lying down and it's fake blood, and they're positioned to look like they've been injured, or they have either been injured or killed. It looks like some windows were shot out of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. It looks like 2 windows, 3 windows have been shot out. I don't know. It looks pretty real to me. It really does, and I do understand what you're saying. But here's the question, I guess, to put an exclamation point on what you're saying. There's a woman cop with a shotgun. She is standing at the grill of what I believe is a police car, black and white police car. She's crouched down. She's got a shotgun. She's aiming it. She does not have a helmet on. And somebody about 15 degrees off axis from the barrel, the muzzle of the shotgun, is taking her picture. Now, who in their right mind would take a picture of someone holding a shotgun maybe 10 feet out of the direct path of the projectile from the shotgun? Who would do that? I don't know. I certainly wouldn't.
Probably lots of people in the younger generation who have never been around firearms.
Yeah. I'm looking at I'm looking at lots of police presence. I'm looking at fire-med presence. I'm looking at emergency response people. So, Mike, could it be enhanced? Yeah, I guess it could. Meaning, could there be reports of more carnage than actually happened? Yeah, I guess that could happen. However, I kind of think this is real. I really do. And, the looks on some of either they're actors and they're doing a really good job of looking like they're concerned, look like they're running, or it's real.
Well, you can panic anybody,
Yes.
so I don't know. I mean, we have to sift through the wheat and chaff to determine what really happens, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I just want to say the Four Seasons, when I was a kid, was my favorite group. That is, until the Beatles came along.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you, it sounded like when I was at that concert with Mrs. Finelli, that's something that she wanted to take me to. And that's why I went. We were dating at the time. And it sure sounded like Frankie Valli had his testicles in a vice when he was singing. He really had a high-pitched voice. But it was they were quite excellent in performing. And by the way, so were the Beach Boys. And there was another concert that I went to. One of our instructors, Dr. Shane, and his wife asked if Mrs. Finelli and I wanted to go with him to see the Eagles. They happened to be in Springfield maybe 10 years ago. Other than that, I haven't been to any others.
I've been to a bunch of concerts. I saw the Eagles in 1972, and Linda Ronstadt opened for them.
Mm-hmm.
Great show.
Well, the Eagles, they don't get on stage without knowing exactly what they're going to do. It's well rehearsed. It's well choreographed. It is not spontaneous. They may have it look like it's spontaneous, but they actually opened up and said, look, it's really not spontaneous. We rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and re-rehearse everything we do to make sure it goes off without a hitch. That's what they said to us in Springfield, Missouri. But Mike, you bring up some points. There are a lot of people who think that some of these events are staged, some of these events are manufactured, some of these events they have actors, crisis actors, to in front of the camera to cause alarm and concern and pity and fear. I believe that happens too. Some of the news companies have been caught manufacturing video. They get actors to stand in front of the camera and they create fake shoots, and they release them as if they're real, and people respond to them as if they're real. But this looks like a lot of this is real. And I do understand what you're saying, that, you have some fireworks and you can set off fireworks and you can cause a panic. If you got that many people, you could have some staged actors and staged provocateurs, yelling gunshots and fire, and people are getting killed, and, stage them around the event and have caused pandemonium. I believe that could happen too. But in this case, I think a lot of this happened to be real. I really do. I'm sorry to say it, but I don't know how we would prove that it wasn't real unless we were there, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a conundrum. We have to. I don't know. We just can't take anything for granted, in my opinion.
That's a really good point. So, Mike, when I first read this article before the broadcast this morning, I was in the kitchen at the computer, just checking up on last-minute news and world events. And as I was reading this article, I was thinking, what would Vinny do? Okay, first of all, Vinny would not want to be there. But if Vinny were there, it would be unlikely that Vinny would want to be there without having his own protection. Now, here's the question, and this is a serious question, class. So, let's say you're at an event and there is someone shooting, okay? Let's say it's at the Aurora movie theater in Colorado, and there's a gunman who comes in the side door and starts plinking and starts shooting people, and he's got body armor on. He's got protection on his legs, his chest, his groin, he's got a helmet, and he's got a rifle, and he just starts shooting. So let's say Vinny had his .45, and let's say Vinny thought, I think I could take this guy out, all right? So Vinny decides he's going to stop this active shooter, and he discharges 3 rounds and takes this guy out. Now, what is the probability that when the police come, they're going to kill Vinny because he shot his .45? Pretty high, right? What is the possibility that in this case, when you have this massive crowd, and the numbers that I read were about 22,000 people attended this. Now, I guess that number would be over time, not all at one instant, but over the event, 22,000 people. Okay, so there are shots being fired from this, let's say from this hotel room, 10 stories up. And Vinny decides, maybe he could get a couple rounds up there and maybe slow this guy down. So Vinny can take his .45 and start shooting at the hotel. Now, there's a possibility that Vinny could miss and hit, 1, 2, or 3 rooms up or down. There's a lot of commotion going on, and the .45 is, not really good for this purpose. It's good for close in, but not too good for this kind of thing. But if that's all Vinny has, and he wants to do something, and he starts plinking, and he starts shooting at this building, what's the possibility that Vinny's going to get shot on the ground by the cops? Pretty high, right?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
There's all kinds of things that can go wrong if you try to take the law into your own hands.
Well, is it taking the law into your own hands, or is it protecting yourself from this person who's plinking, whoever it may be?
Well,
to me, it's not taking. I understand what you're saying, Mike, but to me, it's not taking the law into your own hands. To me, it's shooting back.
Well, yeah. Either way, we can debate semantics, but there's all kinds of things that can go wrong because you could miss the actual shooter and hit somebody.
That's what I said.
And like you said, you could be mistaken by the police for the actual shooter.
Yep.
I'd just be, even if I was armed in a situation where there was an active shooter and I had the possibility of taking him out, I'd just be extremely nervous and, because all kinds of...
All right, let's talk about that. So, Mike, hold that thought, and we'll talk about it when we come back on the other side of the break. And I'm going to tell you what a cop told me, if you're in a situation like this, to help prevent you from being shot by the cops. Help prevent you, not prevent you, but help prevent you from being shot. We'll be right back. Mike in Maryland's with us. Guineith Isaacs is with us. She's in Australia. I'm Vin Finelli. This is USA Prepares. Mike in Maryland is with us. Guineith Isaacs is with us in Australia. And we're talking about the massacre in Las Vegas. And during the bottom of the hour, during the last break, Mrs. Finelli and I were chatting about this. And she said, most people don't have machine guns. And she's absolutely right. However, if a person wants to have a machine gun, there's a $200 tax that you pay to the federal government, and you can have a registered machine gun, if you pass their background check. So if many who are listening to this broadcast or just most people in general can have a machine gun just by applying to the government and paying a $200 tax and legally purchasing a machine gun. The machine gun is either a pistol or a rifle that is capable of shooting multiple rounds with the squeezing of the trigger once. Okay, and back in the Great Depression era, the 1920s, the 1930s, there were gangland shootings, and one of the weapons of choice was the Tommy gun, the Thompson.
I was going to say Tommy gun.
Yeah, Tommy gun. And Tommy guns are available. I saw a Tommy gun available in .22 caliber. I saw they come in 9mm, 45. So there are variants of it. And I went to a website, and I was thinking, okay, the police who responded, the FBI, the SWAT teams, looks like those guys were carrying, could be machine guns. And I was looking at, so what's available in a short AR style, 9mm, semi-automatic or automatic rifle. And so here's what I found. So you can get an AR style, an AR-9. And I'm not advocating this. I'm just saying these are just the facts. You get a 9mm rifle. It looks like an AR-15, but it's chambered in 9mm. The barrel length is 14.7 inches or 16 inches. The overall length is about 31 1/4 inches or 32 3/4 inches. And empty, it weighs 6 pounds, 1 ounce. And you can have magazines that are high capacity. So you can have lots and lots of rounds of ammunition in this 9mm style AR type rifle. And it's short. And you can get it with a collapsible stock. I'm not recommending that you do it. I'm just saying these are the facts. So maybe that adds a little more information as to how a bunch of allegedly an arsenal, if you will, that's what the media is calling it, got into this hotel room. Maybe that's how. Here is an advertisement for an AR-9 carbine. Okay. And it says here, it's Wilson Combat. It says, not simply a converted AR-15, the Wilson Combat AR-9 has been specifically designed for superior reliability and maximum accuracy while retaining the familiar handling controls of the AR platform. I mean, that's their advertisement. And I told you about the particulars, the specifications. Mike, go ahead.
I just want to mention, I collect AK-47s. You can buy them for as cheap as $500 or $600, up to $1,500. But a fully automatic AK-47 will cost at least $15,000 to $20,000. Maybe you can find one for $10,000 somewhere. But maybe 10 years ago they're going for $5,000 or $6,000. But a fully automatic AK-47 legally purchased will go anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. But I'm looking at the Daily Mail article. Oh shoot!
Huh?
I'm commenting on the Daily Mail article.
Yeah, you want to hold through the top of the hour break?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Guineith is with us. We'll all be here. And Mike, an AK-47 can be converted relatively inexpensively, illegally, to an automatic weapon. Right? It can be converted. I'm not advocating it. I'm just saying, you're talking about legally doing it. Well, if you're going to murder I don't know, 50 people or more, who's worried about the law, right? So we got some problems here. Everyone all set? We're talking about the most deadly shooting in United States history last night in Las Vegas. And the news is reporting that Islamist State terrorist group are claiming responsibility for this act of mass murder. Think about that. They're claiming responsibility for this act of mass murder. Mike in Maryland is with us. He's calling in.
Yeah.
Guineith Isaacs is with us. She's live in Australia. And I'd like to read this before we talk about wind-up toys and before we talk about what a cop told me. And this is from a website called thefiringline.com, thefiringline.com. And it's a forum. And someone posted a question, and it's called Some Legal Questions About My AK-47. That would be his AK-47. Goes on to say, I'm not too familiar with all the NFA stuff. I do know a little bit, but not enough to answer these questions myself. I know that it's legal to own a fully automatic weapon. I know there's a good deal of paperwork to fill out. I know that you have to pay a $200 tax, and I know that they are very expensive. That's about the extent of what I know. Keep in mind when I'm telling you why, keep that in mind when I tell you why I can or cannot do this. I was looking at the trigger group in my AK-47 the other day and pretty much figured out how to make it fully auto, meaning fully automatic, making it a machine gun. Not going into detail because I don't want to give anyone ideas of doing something they shouldn't, but basically there would be no select fire, only safe and full auto. So I pondered to myself, why can't I own a modified trigger? Can I legally modify it myself? Can I legally purchase a modified trigger? If there's no special license or certificate I need to purchase or own an NFA weapon, why can't I just have one that didn't come from a Class 3 dealer? And if this is legal, who would I need to contact? Anyway, those are just a few of the questions stewing in my brain at the moment. And I know that there can't, and I know that can't be all there is between my semi-auto and your fully auto because I can't select a single fire operation. But hey, if I can legally get around spending $14,000 for an awesome toy, I'm all about it. Also, I know that most of you are probably not lawyers, but I figured your input would give me a good starting point. Thanks. And then the guy's name. And there's a response that says, domestic manufacture of full auto weapons are banned in 1986. You can only get what existed before 1986. The next response says, converting an AK-47 requires machining the receiver. Just machining the receiver will get you 10 years in federal prison, even if you don't install the auto sear. That's spelled AUTOSEAR. There were less than 100 bring-back AK-47s registered before the 1986 ban on imported machine guns. They started around $25,000. There were 1,000 Egyptian and Chinese semi-autos converted before the registry was closed in 1986. One of those will run you about $13,500. Next post. Illegal. Only Class 2 manufacturer can make a post-1986 full auto. Now, these are just these are not my words. The words that I read are not my words. They are words from a post or posts from the Firing Line. It's a forum about guns. Now, I just wanted to say those things because Mike in Maryland, you said and regarding the numbers of what these things cost, you're absolutely right. And these posts put exclamation points on your words. So my words are, here are people wondering, they think they can do it themselves, and they probably can. So I'm saying that not everybody is going to own a legal, according to the federal government or the state government's, firearm. There are people who are going to...
All I have to say is if you illegally convert any kind of weapon to full auto, and if your girlfriend or wife knows about it, and if they're pissed off at you, she could narc on you and get you in big trouble. But listen, I want to talk about the Daily Mail article. I'm looking at this one woman who's laying on her left side that supposedly was shot. There's blood dripping down the back of her legs. She's wearing gray shorts. Now, it's running across her legs, not down her legs. Now, let's assume she was standing up and she was shot in the leg. Okay, if she was shot in the leg in the front, obviously, and then she falls down, the blood would go down the front of her leg and not the back. It looks like either her or somebody else just dripped streaks of blood across the back of her legs. That picture makes no sense whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm looking at exactly that same picture. Class, we're talking about the dailymail.co.uk, and the caption under that picture, there's a woman or a girl with gray shorts on, and looks like she has sneakers on, or I believe they're sneakers. I can't really tell. From her upper thigh, there is blood between her legs. Her legs are in parallel. She is positioned parallel to two other people, and they're all lying down. You can't see any of their faces, and you're absolutely right. Blood is running between her legs. Now the question is, was she shot, let's say in the chest, and blood ran down, and then she either collapsed or was ducking or trying to huddle to make a smaller exposure, so that maybe she'd have a smaller potential for being shot again if she was shot? I don't know. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The blood is running vertically down. It's running from above straight down. You're absolutely right. There's no question about it.
And you would think with 50 dead and 400 injured, that's the only picture they could come up with? Do you imagine what it would take to get 400 ambulances to an area like that? The place would be littered with people. They'd be all over the place. But they only have this one, to me, that looks like an obviously staged fake photo. Come on, give me a break. I wasn't born last week.
So, Mike, as far as I can tell, you're saying at the absolute minimum, and correct me if I'm wrong, at the absolute minimum, this is embellished, right? These photos.
Staged to me.
Yeah,
and
the whole thing?
There were crowds for hire was looking for people for Vegas on Craigslist too.
Are you saying you saw advertisements on Craigslist, crowds for hire?
Well, there's a YouTube video. It says Las Vegas shooting DHS FEMA drill advertised on crowds on demand, and so there's a short 1 minute 33-second video that purports to show an advertisement for Vegas on Craigslist.
Mm-hmm. You know, it looks. Have you seen these images where there are bottles, plastic bottles, and trash? I mean, it literally looks like a dumpster was dumped out and scattered in a small area. Are you seeing those pictures as well?
Yeah, I know. I can't understand. You know, I can't imagine why there would be all that trash. It doesn't make any sense either. Unless
there was a packed crowd standing there, and then they decided, we better get out of here, and they dropped whatever was in their hand. But they had to be wall to wall. I mean, very little room between, all these people standing next to each other, really packed in like sardines, and they all dropped. I see hats. I see mostly clear bottles. Looks like there's some red label bottles that might have been Coke. Mostly water bottles is what I'm seeing, but a lot of them. And there's another image of a woman standing. Let me get back to it. She was standing. Looked like she's being interviewed. Okay, she's being interviewed, and it says, "Witness Brianna Hendricks, who was in Las Vegas celebrating her 21st birthday, told DailyMail.com that a woman had told the crowd, "You're all going to die today," 45 minutes before the shooting. It's not known if the two are connected. But she's standing there. She looks pretty calm. She's being interviewed by someone. We don't know whom. And then to her left is another woman just standing there, looks like a senior citizen, with a bottle of water. And neither one of these two women, and the only people in the shot, there's nobody in the background. It looks like everything is calm. Nothing has happened. That's what that image looks like. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't seen that.
She's wearing a blue shirt, this woman, and she's looking at the person interviewing her. I don't know what to make of it, but Mike, you're bringing up some very, very good points. But I have a feeling that some of this is real, at least. I don't think this is all theater. I really don't. If it is, it was very, very well done. But some of the images are, pretty strange. Like, for example, there's a man and a woman carrying what looks like another man or woman. This one guy has her arms, and he's walking backwards with her. A woman has this person's legs, walking forward. And if this person were shot, the last way you want to carry this person is in what looks like a sitting position. It looks like that. I don't know if that's real or not. I don't see any blood. But it says here, people assisted a wounded woman at Tropicana Hotel, which is located close to where the Route 91 festival was being held. Looks like they're in the basement of this hotel. I don't know. You bring up some very valid points. Mike, anything else you want to say?
No, just thanks for taking my call, and you and your co-host there do a great job. Thank you very much.
Hey, Mike, thanks so much. Gwyneth and I'll be right back. Gwyneth, you're at a disadvantage here because you don't have the internet at this time of the night in Australia. I know that because you're living off the grid, but let me just read another headline. This is dailymail.co.uk. Exclusive. He was just a guy. Something happened. He snapped. Las Vegas shooter's brother says family is dumbfounded at the massacre and have no idea of the motive. Stephen Paddock, 64, opened fire at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas Village early on Monday morning, killing at least 50. His brother Eric tells DailyMail.com that his family have no idea what happened to make him shoot. He was just a guy. Something happened. He snapped or something, he said. Goes on to say the brother of the Las Vegas shooter said that he was a normal guy who must have snapped before carrying out the worst mass shooting in American history. Eric said that there was absolutely no indication that he could do something like this and that Stephen had no political or religious affiliation. He said he was just a guy. Something happened. He snapped or something. Speaking from his home in Orlando, Florida, Eric said, "We know absolutely nothing. This is just, we were dumbfounded." That's what it says. Now, snapping, I can understand that. However, this had to be premeditated, because if he had weapons enough to kill 50 and injure 406 or more, he had to have carried them from wherever they were to this hotel room where he allegedly did his shooting from, and then killing himself. Now, here's a comment that I'd like to read, and I think this comment is quite apt. It's a comment to the article that I just read. It says, to all those saying he didn't snap, it was premeditated. This man went through his entire life without hurting anybody before taking it upon himself to murder as many people as possible before killing himself. If you think those are actions of a man thinking rationally, then you have a much stranger idea of sane than his brother has of crazy. A paranoid schizophrenic, which this guy likely suffered from, probably brought on by antidepressants, is perfectly able to plan, even if that plan is not rational, such as murdering people and killing yourself. There was clearly a catalyst for this act. My bet is some form of drugs, but it could be a mix of drugs, and him forming some hateful ideology because of induced schizophrenia. The ideology is probably irrelevant to the act, though. That was a combat from someone who read the same article that I read part of to you on the air. Is this all true? I don't know. Is it embellished? I don't know. These are just some of the thoughts that we have here at USA Prepares based on what we've read. So these are just our opinions. Class, and when I talked about weapons that could have been used, I absolutely positively am not advocating hate or violence or murder or mayhem in any way, shape, or form. I am not. I think it's as horrible as can be. George in New Hampshire, welcome. You're on the air.
Vincent, Guineith. I just wanted to say that Lee Harvey Oswald, I think there's enough evidence now that shows that at best he didn't act alone. And we got the 1968 Gun Control Act that harkened back to that incident where he supposedly ordered a mail-order gun that was military surplus that you could see in any number of the gun periodicals of the time. And they used that as an excuse for the 1968 gun registration laws that made it so that every time you go into a gun shop, you have to sign that federal form. And I feel that this is going to enact even stricter and harsher legislation, and the rallying call is going to be get the guns out of the hands of, legitimate owners.
Really good point, George. Can you hold that thought?
Like that, you're not going to worry about the law.
Hold that thought, George. Can you stay with us?
Sure.
Okay. Yep, George, USA Prepares instructor in New Hampshire, is with us, along with Guineith. We'll be right back. Class, Guineith and I we're going to talk about land and adverse possession in this broadcast, but it doesn't look like we're going to be doing that today. So I expect that we'll be doing that tomorrow. Guineith, does that make sense to you?
Probably tomorrow. Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. All right. George is with us. George, I wanted to tell our broadcast class this, and I want to make sure we have time for this, and you may want to comment on this as well, and Guineith as well. A cop told me that when you're involved in an event where there's a shooting, you need to call call 911 and say, and this would be a case like the Colorado Aurora movie theater shooting, and I described that, if any was there, would he have his .45, and if he did, would he take out or try to take out the active shooter who was standing in a doorway just plinking at people and killing them? Or it could be a situation where you're at an event with a lot of people and someone starts shooting, and if you can prevent the further loss of life, and if you feel your life is threatened, you're in danger of being killed or severely injured, at least in Missouri, you have the right to defend yourself and shoot. Well, let's say a person or I, for that matter, decided that it was in my best interest and everyone else's to take out the murderer, okay, the guy who would be plinking at us, in a crowd, for example. Well, this cop told me that you need to call 911 and say something like this: I'm the victim. I am the victim. I am the victim. I'm the one in the red shirt. I'm in the red shirt with dark blue jeans. I'm the victim. When your guys get here, don't shoot me. I'm the victim. I'm the guy that took out the shooter. Don't shoot me. I'm the guy in the red shirt. I'm the victim. Okay? Now, that's what he told me. And it makes a lot of sense, because what's going to happen when the cops get there, there are going to be some people saying, him, he's the guy in the red shirt, he's got the gun, right? Aren't they going to do that?
Yeah, probably.
Because some people, the generally dumb public would be likely to do that, because maybe they don't have all the information about the guy who started shooting first, starting killing people, and then the guy with the red shirt stopped it all. But you need to make sure you don't get killed. Guineith, your comments?
Yeah, I would say that's also probably a really good idea. And even if you said to them, the emergency dispatcher, I'm the guy in the red shirt, and I'm trying. There's this guy, he's shooting at me. I am armed. I'm defending myself. Mm-hmm. And then the police know that there's somebody else in there with a weapon who's only trying to shoot the guy who's shooting at them. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And, yeah. And then it's crystal clear. Then they've got no excuse. Then if nothing else, if you end up on a marble slab and your family gets a hold of the 911 call, then they can sue the hell out of, they can sue the daylights out of whoever it is, who shot your beloved one.
Yes. However, here's what the cop told me. He said, absolutely, positively, be prepared for being arrested because you will be arrested. So the guy in the red shirt saves the day, takes out the active shooter.
But he's arrested anyway.
But he's arrested, handcuffed, behind his back with, I'm sure, with those torture-type handcuffs that cut off your circulation. He's going to be thrown around, slammed on the ground, banged against the roof of the car when he gets in. I mean, the guy's going to be treated roughly for saving the day. Okay, so be prepared for that.
He should be given a medal.
Oh, of course. But, George, your thoughts?
Well, and I know, though, in this warped, twisted time that we live in, a lot of times when the police walk into something, they're not sure who made the phone call, whether or not they got the true story. I agree with you from a technical standpoint. You should at least try to alert them to the fact, to identify who's who when they're walking in. But a lot of times, I've seen police officers, and I was in law enforcement for a time, and, you walk into a situation, and you get people talking to you who can be extremely convincing, as liars often are. And then to the point almost that the honest person, much of the time, you develop like an instinct. You got like a gut reaction where you're a little suspicious if something doesn't quite check out. But in the midst of a shooting, I remember one police officer friend told me, he says, George, I think it was Attorney General Meese, and I think he was under Regan. He said, he did say this, in fairness. He says, a police officer is supposed to make split-second decisions that will have a committee study for 6 months to come up with a conclusion. And I'm saying they're only human, and at the same time, I'm not justifying irresponsible behavior in law enforcement, but by the same token is that you've got a lot of very wickedly psychopathic, sociopathic individuals who will lie through their teeth and manipulate a situation so that they'll look like the victim when in reality it might have been a murder in the reverse, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And I hear this a lot, that police only have, these split seconds to make a decision. However, they hear over and over and over and over again at these dispatching meetings, okay, guys, we all want you to go home to your families tonight, come home safe, which really means shoot first. If you think there's a dangerous situation and you might not come home to your family, make sure that if anyone's going to die, it's not going to be you. I believe they all hear that over and over and over again, and their training is to have a hair trigger. I believe that is the case. I don't want to be a cop. I really don't. It's typically it's a dangerous job. However, so is farming. But the difference is, farming, I'm dealing with equipment more than I'm dealing with irrational people. And unfortunately, there are plenty of irrational people. I see irrational people all the time. I get, just from a almost an innocuous standpoint, I keep saying, does everybody have to cut me off, with their car? Does everybody have to pull out in front of me? They see that they don't have enough time to safely pull out, so they wait a couple more seconds, and then they cut me off. So people are doing some irrational things with automobiles. They're taking their lives in putting their lives in danger. It's ridiculous. It's beyond stupid, but still they're doing it. And so here are the headlines on the Drudge Report. Let me just read a couple of these. Face of evil, gunman named. Next line. He snapped. Next line. ISIS claims soldier. Next line. Flashback. Video threatened Vegas. Shooter kills self before arrest. Arsenal in hotel room. Fires from 32nd floor. Oh, we were told it was the 10th floor. Bullets rain down for 10 minutes. How is that possible? How is it possible in Las Vegas, where there are cameras everywhere, that bullets can rain down for 10 minutes? Next line. There's a video. Shot after shot after shot. Concert goers run for lives. Singer flees stage. Defiant fan gives the finger, whatever that means. Deadliest mass shooting in American history. Warning before attack. You're all going to die. Dems push gun control. George, that's what you were talking about. Casino stocks fall. KTNV, live. That's live coverage. Then Trump, sadness, shock, and grief. And then the main headline, Mandalay Massacre, 58 dead, 515 injured at Las Vegas concert. Machine gun terror over Strip. Those are the headlines on the Drudge Report. Very, very serious.
Well,
we commented on putting yourself in harm's way. I commented that I'm not interested in going to concerts. I'm not interested in going to ball games. George, your thoughts?
Well, I'll just say this, is that I think that I would study it. I'm not saying I'm that expert, but but like yourself, and like Guineith, we're thinking people. In other words, we reason things. We use common sense. I would bet dollars to donuts that 32nd floor hotel room was strategically chosen because of the commanding view that it must have had of the square below. And I would bet money that if you studied it, you'd realize it wasn't a random choice and some thought went into it. And I also think that I'll bet that the individual was under some sort of psychotropic medication. And I'll bet money that it won't come out too strongly, but they say there is medication out there that basically will make somebody who's depressed, say, will make them not only more depressed, but either suicidal and or homicidal.
Okay. I'm in total agreement with you. I know a guy. I knew him pretty well. And he had a government job, and he was prescribed antidepressants. And what did he do? Well, he drove to the top of a very tall bridge. I mean a very tall bridge. Pulled his car over to the side as far to the right as he could. There's 2 lanes going each direction on this very tall bridge. Pulled his car over to the side, put his emergency flashers on, put his wallet on the dashboard, and jumped. And lived. Okay? So after he got out of the hospital, things seemed to be normal. And he and his wife had breakfast together. They were going to go to work separately. They had separate jobs. He said, I'm going to stay behind just a couple minutes. She thought something was wrong after she left. She turned around, found him hanging, swinging from the rafters in the basement. He hung himself. That worked. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and also on the line, USA Preparedness Instructor George in New Hampshire is with us. George, I'd like to call you tonight after, well after the broadcast, and see if you're available on Friday, if that makes sense for you. Guineith, I'd love to hear your comments about the wind-up toy. You had mentioned you wanted to talk about that.
Okay. A wind-up toy is this, okay? Using the example of Julian Knight, okay? Julian Knight was a young man. He lived in Melbourne. He wasn't right in the head, okay? He had a extreme gun mania. He fantasized about going out and killing people. Okay? This was back in the 1980s, and my husband at that time had his mission in Fitzroy. Julian Knight's best friends were two brothers by the name of Chris and Damien Reed, and their brother, their half-brother, was Mark Reed, otherwise known as Chopper Reed, who was one of the most infamous Melbourne underworld figures of the day. Now, despite all that background, which anyone doing a 5-minute background check, even back then, could have come to the link between, Julian Knight and the Reed brothers, all three of them. All three of the Reed brothers at the time were big-time gun maniacs who would think guns, talk guns, and actually talk about going out and killing lots and lots of people at the time. And somebody, Chris Reed and Damien Reed came into the mission one day, Archie's mission, and said, "Oh, guess what, Archie? We're in the Army Reserves." And Archie turned around and he said, "What? Who let you people," he probably used some other language, "into the Army Reserves?" And he said, "Oh, we went down there and we signed up. And guess what, Archie? They've given us guns." And he said he absolutely lost it. It took quite a bit for Archie to ever lose it. But on that day, he lost it. And he said, and they said, "Oh, guess what, Archie? We had our friend Julian with us." And then Archie really lost it. And he actually contacted the Australian Army and really dressed them down and let them know exactly who the Reed brothers and Julian Knight were. And this was before Julian Knight this was before he did the Hoddle Street Massacre, okay? But he absolutely, it's a matter of public record now, that he got his guns where he did this Hoddle Street Massacre where he killed maybe a dozen people. I mean, you can look it up on Google, just type in Hoddle Street Massacre Melbourne, Julian Knight, Knight, and you'll see the whole story. And they said, "Oh, no, it's all right, Archie." And the thing is that the Australian Army knew all along that all three of these guys were unbalanced and actually gave them the weapons so that they would go out and that they would do the damage that they did. And in my humble opinion, okay, the Australian military is 100% responsible for the Hoddle Street Massacre because 5 minutes of background checking of Julian Knight would have immediately linked him to the Reed brothers, who at that time, Mark Reed, Chopper Reed, was a notorious criminal who would go around and quite literally shoot his enemies in the Melbourne underworld in the back of the head. And he would post photos. They didn't have the internet at the time, but there were photos of Mark Reed circulating, posing with his arsenal at the time. And you can look them up these days on Google if you just go into a search engine and type in Chopper Reed.
Well, I looked up Hoddle Street. I looked up Hoddle Street Massacre. It's there. Yeah. It's there in Wikipedia.
Chopper Reed, R-E-A-D.
We're out of time.
Chopper
George.
Reed.
All right.
George, thank you so much for being with us. I'll call you tonight. Gwyneth, thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.